What's happening, James?
Not a whole lot. I too got forced into watching something I didn't really want to, and that was Iman Shumpert winning Dancing with the Stars. Yeah,
That's
the wife.
work.
Yeah, the wife watched the replay of it because she had not seen who won yet.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I definitely know where you're at there.
He's really, really
Shump
good.
killed it though.
Like he is really. I've seen maybe 3 of his, his dances or whatever, and
Yeah,
he's really good.
yeah, he definitely had some moments. My wife is a big dance fan, and so I've watched "So You Think You Can Dance" multiple seasons of that. I haven't watched a lot of Dancing with the Stars, especially like the early ones this season. Like the guy from Karate Kid, just like that was creepy, and I don't want to watch anymore. I just thought that was weird, and I like couldn't. I'm like, I'm not watching this. So I'm glad there were Kings games. But yeah, uh, we know our dance shows. I've even taken dance classes with the wife, so we've gone
So
and done ballroom.
I just want for context how bad. I assume you're talking about Ralph Macchio.
No.
Oh,
The Cobra Kai guy, the
okay.
bad guy from the first from the movies.
Okay, so just for context to how bad it was, you would rather watch Kings games
Oof.
than that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
bad.
Wow.
That's
yeah.
bad.
Shockingly, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and like again, like me and the wife, I'll suggest this to people. Me and my wife have been married for a long time. When you're a young couple, go out to dinner, take your wife out to dinner, set up go to a dance studio and do couples dances. Go learn how to waltz, go learn how to tango and do all of your standard like ballroom dances. It really does a good job of teaching you connection, teaching you to work as a team. And so just a suggestion there, a marriage suggestion from James Ham. There you go.
See the relationship advice from James Hand. I think he can do everything. Boy, I tell you, that boy, he on everything. I'm gonna have to take you up on that one too.
Yeah.
I can't dance though.
Yeah. So where are we at with this team? I mean, it's tough.
We're talking about dancing and rap albums, and
That's where we're at.
That's where we're at today.
I will tell you this though, James. Just taking a look at the chat house, man. At least the when the show started an hour ago, it seems like people have caught on to the Kings Beat podcast, and that's required listening for all Kings fans. And it sure felt like when we started this show, pretty much everyone in the chat house had listened to it because they were buzzing about it. You and Sean really y'all went in.
Well, I mean, I think you have to. Like, I've been spending all day writing, and I've got to run down early, but I don't know when I'll get it up on the King's Beat. But there's just so much to unpack here. The crazy thing is I spent, I don't know, I'm like 1,400 words in, and at the very end, I acknowledged that I didn't even get to the fact that a team quit on a coach and got him fired. And then the next coach comes out the next game and they get the same thing. They get, I mean, a new coach. If that wasn't like a big giant finger pointing at the players, I don't know what would be. You got a new coach and you played a team missing 5 starters and you lost at home. Like, where do you go? Where do you go? And it's very, very strange. Like, we're in a very, like, almost, I want to say uncharted waters, but it's not. That's the problem, right? We're in this perpetual cycle of like, I just breaking it down. Like, we clearly now know that Vivek Ranadive has a coach he wants, and it's not Alvin Gentry, it's Doug Christie. And what does that mean? When does Monty McNair get to choose his coach? And if he does, I mean, and not only that, but if it's not Monty McNair, if McNair doesn't survive this mess, well, then you already know who the coach is going to be. This is what we did with Michael Malone. Michael Malone was hired before Pete D'Alessandro. This is like every single step that you let Pete D'Alessandro like give George Karl a 3 or a 4-year contract when he had like a month left on the job. Again, not Vlade Divac's hire. You get to the Dave Yeager situation. Vlade had gone through all this massive coaching search. Dave was not on that coaching search. Dave was not his choice. He became available at the last second. The Kings flew him in. He was hired. Now you get to McNair and you hand McNair the job and say, hey, but you got to keep Luke Walton. And so at what point do we get to a basic normalcy of the NBA where a general manager who his job is on the line chooses a coach to partner with, and they have a combination together? They go to war together and say, hey, let's do this together. When do you get to that point? And we just, it's Vivek Ranadive's fingers all over it. And that's, at a certain point, that's the constant. And so I would like to be nice and everything else, but we can't even talk about the fact that a team stopped playing. We got to talk about the fact that we already know who not only the new head coach is, but who the next head coach might be. And neither one of them are the choices that your general manager is making. So,
and just for those who I kind of framed it as if everybody on the planet listened to the Kings Beat podcast, and you should. The person you're referring to is Doug Christie.
Yeah, Doug. And you can't fault Doug if he would have taken the job. I have that not from him, but from other sources that he would have taken the job. And it was clearly put to Alvin Gentry's people. He's going to be the interim this year. And if he's not comfortable with being the interim, then Doug will be the head coach. So that's
not
where
the
we're
interim
at.
head coach,
not
the head coach.
See, that's the question. Would Doug be an interim? Would he be a long-term head coach? But I can't fault Doug. That's a lot of money. But it doesn't take a crystal ball to see how this thing would play out. And we can still see how it could play out from this point on. I mean, it does not take a crystal ball. And so, if a couple of years of NBA head coaching salary is worth you not being able to walk into a grocery store in Sacramento and have fans adore you, then maybe it is. Maybe a couple of $1 million is worth that. But, you're talking about taking yet another guy that is revered in Sacramento, and the chance of him doing anything other than sully his reputation is almost nil. How you explain to me how he's going to get through this and do something different than what other seasoned coaches haven't been able to do. You can say, oh, well, the roster might be better. Well, maybe. So I haven't seen the roster good enough to beat a Philadelphia 76ers team missing 5 starters. So there's so many layers to the onion that's going on right now. And that's, it's typical.
James, roll with me a little bit here, because I got a question.
Let me loosen up. Hang on.
I want to get your opinion on here. So, Kings Beat podcast, phenomenal job. The Low Post podcast with Zach Lowe and Kevin Arnovitz. They talked about what's going on in Sacramento, from things that they hear and their point of view as well. And one of the things that Kevin talked about that I found interesting was he talked about in Sacramento, it's never gonna change unless you find a GM that's able to do basketball stuff and manage the owner, talking about Vivek. And I know in certain situations, in perfect situations, that's not what has to happen for a general manager. They can just focus on basketball and have the support of the owner. But that's what's going on here. And that's what it is. And I wonder, can Monty McNair do that? I think anybody to a certain degree can be persuaded. We got a terminology, where I come from, a little game spitting, where you can pull some type of Jedi mind trick on Vivek or whoever's, making these calls and say, you know what? I know you want Coach X, but I'm telling you, if we go with Coach B, it's going to make you look this way and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's the best thing, not only for the team, but for you. Unfortunately, I know it's unfortunate, but that's part of this job, is you've got to trick Vivek into thinking what you're telling him is the move, is better than what he thinks. And do you think, my question ultimately is, do you think Monty McNair has that in him? Because that seems to be what it's going to take to be able to make his own moves here in Sacramento.
That's going to be the true test. I think that what we've seen so far is that that Monty has won a couple of small battles, and I think that's a good thing. I think even in this particular situation, you may have won a small battle, but I mean, Alvin Gentry wanted like a 3-year contract. He wanted to be here long term and take this team over, and that's just not what was on the table. I think so. In that, what I mean by that is, I think sometimes that you have to manage the expectations of yourself, of the owner, of all the people around you, and you've got to try to get through today to make sure that the path is set, that maybe you can do more damage later. But I don't know. I mean, at the end of this season, we're gonna have a very clear vision of what Monty McNair has been able to accomplish. And if that's fair or not, at this point, do we even care about what's fair? Because it's kind of like the Walton situation. We said, oh, he walked into that first season and they went to India and that messed everything up and they wiped out their whole training camp. And then on top of that, he loses Marvin Bagley, plays 13 games. He loses De'Aaron Fox early in the season. And then COVID hits and then the next season, so we can look at the first 2 years of Walton and say, like, was that fair? Well, you're going to see 2 years of McNair here, and you like, what did you do? One season you did, I don't know. You let your starting shooting guard walk away for nothing. You drafted Tyrese Halliburton, which was nice, but your free agent haul took like 4 days into free agency before you signed Hassan Whiteside and Glenn Robinson III. You made some moves at the deadline. The moves at the deadline, your head coach the next season, all of those guys came back. They didn't even play. They're not even part of the rotation most of the nights. Terrence Davis, Mo Harkless, Alex Len, all these moves that you made. So, I mean, we're at that point where it's like, you keep telling us that there's going to be some big trade, and you had some bad situations where the DiVincenzo trade fell through. You had the situation where the Buddy Hield trade fell through. Well, at this point, like, all of the weight is on everybody. And the only one who the weight isn't on is Vivek, because you can't do anything about him.
Mm-hmm.
He's the chairman. He's the guy with the most shares. He's got an ironclad contract that says this is my team. And so we keep getting caught in this perpetual cycle of one thing's not working at all, but it causes guys like McNair or guys like Walton or guys like Vlade. At least Vlade made one gigantic, huge error that you could not escape. And that's why you point to and you got fired. But the rest of the guys, it's, a basketball team is a team. The franchise has to act as a team. Everyone has to do their part. They have to pull equally. They've got to share the blame. They've got to share the positives, the negatives. And I just don't think that we're seeing that so far with this team.
And I don't think your dogs are pleased with Vivek Ranadive either. I think that's what you heard right there. Casey, go ahead.
To that point, James, like, maybe this is like pie in the sky, but I wonder if anybody has what we call real talk with Vivek Ranadive and kind of use that as leverage to have, I don't want to say power, because that's one of the issues in that whole organization, people trying to wrestle power. But if I'm Monty McNair, for example, and I go to Vivek and I say, I want this coach right now. And Vivek says, well, I want this coach. I want Doug Christie. And does Monty McNair have the cachet? Does he have the game to be like, Vivek, let's have a real conversation here. If you choose this guy, then everyone's going to know it's you. And you're going to be the one that gets the blame. Me, you can fire me today. I'm going to get another job. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to get another job. And you know what they're going to say if I get fired? It's because of crazy Vivek, not because of my performance. Yep. So I'll be fine. Your best bet, Vivek, right now is to put all of this on me. Let me get who I want to get. And if it comes off and it doesn't work, it's going to look bad on me, not on you, because you actually let go of the reins and let me do what I want to do. You're kind of scot-free. Let me do what I want to do. Do you think he has that type of cachet to have that type of conversation with Vivek Ranadive.
Well, you can have that conversation, but it gets back to the one basic thing. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what a GM or a coach or any. It doesn't matter. You cannot do anything about Vivek. If Vivek doesn't want to change, if this is how he wants to continuously run business, then maybe he finds some sort of lightning in a bottle and it works. It might. And I think one of the things that like some people will point to is that Vivek, even though he got it wrong in the end, he got it so right with Michael Malone. Michael Malone was an exceptional coach. So now you have him saying, hey, I did that right. I did that right. And oh, by the way, like it's not Vlade that will take credit for Dave Yeager. It was Vivek and others that brought in Dave Yeager. So he got it right there too. So it's almost like that's the behavior that like, well, I wasn't wrong. I was wrong for firing Michael Malone, but I wasn't wrong for hiring him. Look how good he's done in Denver. And so you have this cycle of, the little wins make someone feel like, well, they should still be part of the conversation every time. And I don't know, like, again, is everything on Vivek? No, it's not. Again, Vivek doesn't walk into a locker room and have a win one for Walton speech. Like, that's not what his job is. That's not what he does. The fact that the players are playing the way they are, that's not like, that's the hardest thing. There's not a direct correlation between what we're seeing on the court and what's happening in management. You can say, Tristan Thompson said, it's all the way to the guy who signs the checks. Well, that was a shot across the bow. But at the same time, Luke Walton, the players still had Luke Walton's back. They just stopped playing. So you have like this really, really strange conundrum. Like, how do we go forward? And I don't know. I don't know that McNair has that kind of cachet. I'm going to say the answer is no. But the next guy won't either. It doesn't matter who it is. You're going to keep looking for analytics guys or outside the box guys or whatever it might be. It does not matter unless a change happens. The only thing you're hoping for is just random luck, randomly, that everything comes together at one point. And it's almost like, I'll even say this. It only happened one time in Kings history that everything came together at one point. It was 1998 during the lockout. They trade for Chris Webber. They signed Vlade Divac. They get Peja Stojakovic to come from overseas. They add Jason Williams in the draft. They sign some key smaller free agents, and you capture this moment of brilliance. Outside of that, this franchise has not shown, regardless of who's running it, that they can find success and that they can embrace success, and then they can look for more success. They just don't do it. So like, it's you want to put all the blame, but I know Vivek doesn't want to lose. I know it kills him to watch, everyone talk about the guy throwing up on the court as like a representation of the entire 15 years that we've watched of Kings basketball. That doesn't feel good for anybody to hear that and to have everyone go, oh yeah, Sacramento. Like, that doesn't feel good for that to be what your franchise is called. So when do we get to a point where you start really having the hard discussions about how do we get better? How do we change things? And if the one constant is obvious, then I don't know how we move forward.
So who's going to have those discussions with him? Because it sounds like that's who this discussion needs to be with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I don't think there is.
Because it's not just him, right? Like, there are people around him that are enabling this. Like, no one's pulling him aside and saying, hey, you hired basketball people. Let the basketball people do basketball stuff.
Well, I think at a certain point, like, you had some very vocal minority owners, and then they just
I think those minority owners are still very vocal.
Yeah. Well,
they're just talking to Zach Lowe and Kevin and maybe you and Sam Amick.
They got pushed to the side, though. A lot of them got pushed to the side. A lot of them said, I can't do this anymore. I mean, Mark Masterov, he could have been the head guy on this group. And a lot of people thought that was the guy. Well, he sold his shares. Andy Miller sold his shares. Like, a lot of these guys just cashed out and they made a ton of money. But I guarantee you, while it feels good to have that bank account, it did not feel good. This is not what they wanted. They wanted success. They wanted to ride this thing out. That's what they wanted in this situation. And so we can just be honest here. Like, I see people saying, oh, it's minority owners and Amex here, like whoever. Like, that doesn't matter. The information always gets out. We've talked about this. It always gets out. The media always knows more than what you think they do. There are certain times where we don't know the whole picture. Well, it sure does seem like somebody writes an entire roadmap as if they were somebody's GPS in their pocket while this entire story, the trail of this story happened, because it happens every single time. And we always get all the information. And so, yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know the answer to that. I think, unless some of the bigger owners, the Jacobs or Raj Bethal, or, somebody wants to step up and say, how do we do things differently? It goes unchecked, and it is what it is. And so I know a lot of them said, hey, at a certain point, we're just not going to keep paying for the coaches that you fire. And they're like, so if you want to fire somebody, go ahead and fire them. If you want to fire Dave Yeager with 2 years left on his contract, which was part of a discussion, like, you're paying for it. We're not going to fit the bill anymore. And so a lot of it's just like, okay, well, we'll let him go into the next season. And so I think we keep getting in that situation where, there's potential. Luke Walton's under contract all of this year and all of next year. They're paying him like $5.75 million next season. So if you gave Alvin Gentry the full, coaching contract this year and next year and said, okay, we'll give you 2 years. Well, if this thing continues to unwind and you got to fire him at the end of the season, now you're already at, I don't know what the grand total would be, but I would say $8 or $9 million. And that's before you hire the coach that's actually going to coach the team that year. So
and that's not counting Vlade.
Yeah. And that's not counting Vlade. And it's not counting anyone else that loses their job between now and then too. So you're looking at the potential for running into next season with, dead money of executives and coaches of, $10, $12 million. That's a lot of money to just, this franchise lost. I know it was over $100 million, probably like 4 months into the pandemic. I don't know what their grand total was. It's probably a couple of $100 million. So you can't just like lose money like this left and right. I mean, we're still in the pandemic. The concerts still aren't sold out. There's 13,000 fans, and that's pushing the number big time at Kings games. There's no one going to that beautiful Sawyer hotel every single night, just because we're still in a pandemic. So like the losses are still hitting. It's just, at some point, like this is a path that was chosen and everyone is living it. And until it's not the path, or until somebody comes to some realizations, or if someone just blindly gets lucky and catches something that's unexpected in a bottle, then you're going to keep finding these things. We're going to keep seeing the same cycle year in and year out.
Here's what I'll say about Vivek. And you talk about, he doesn't want to lose. He wants to win. He's tired of, he doesn't want to see the guy throwing up at half court go viral and that be a representation. He doesn't want all that. And I agree with that. But I'll say the same thing about Vivek that I say about some of these players. Do you would it be nice, or are you willing to do what needs to be done to turn this thing around? And that's what's in question. He may want to win, but at what cost? Or what credit? Like, he wants to win his way, the way he wants to do things, the way he sees fit. And if he doesn't win that way, it seems as though he's cool letting things go along how they are, as long as it's his way or his team's way or whatever the case may be. Because if it was really just win at all costs, just like I talk about these guys who, still can't shoot or haven't improved on their game, or, only do the bare minimum in a workout and not the Kobe hours and things of that nature. If he wanted to win at all costs, he would look at some of the mistakes that he's made, Vivek, and not make the same mistakes. And what I see is it seems to me, from a little bit more on the outside looking in, he's doing the same things. Story's still getting out, still trying to have sway over the coach. He's doing the same things that haven't worked. So do you want to win, or is it more important for you to win your way? And that's the question that he needs to answer.
James, before you respond to that, we're going to catch a breather. We're going to come back. James Ham's going to spend some more time with us as D'Lo and Casey continue here on Sacramento's #1 sports station, ESPN 1320. Sorry, we'll just have to table that. We couldn't have pushed the break anymore.
No, it's okay.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, that was my mistake.
No, you're good. We'll get to it right. We'll get to it right after.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to come in so hot today, but at the same point, like I just got done writing like basically my synopsis of the entire situation, and it's, I mean, I just don't know how else to put it. I don't. At some point, you know, like, well, I'll the Maloofs, right? Like the Maloofs ran out of money. Before that, they were actually really good owners. They stayed out of the way. When they ran out of money, desperation, they reeked of desperation, not just with the basketball side, but trying to sell the team and all that stuff. And, you know, it just, at a certain point, if you don't have the money to keep putting into it, and then you make non-basketball related decisions. You make decisions that are, you know, again, like we'll go back to the Damian Lillard situation. They were going to draft Damian Lillard the night before. And from what I know, Petrie went to the Maloofs and said, look, I need to know that I can pay Jason Thompson in free agency. Like even it's $5-6 million bucks. I need to know that I can pay him, because if not, I don't have a power forward. I don't have one on the roster. So will you at least tell me that? And they wouldn't guarantee that he'd have enough money to do it. And so he drafted Thomas Robinson. Now that could be some Petrie spin, but it also was a reality. And then they allowed him to sign Jason Thompson anyways, but you missed out on a generational for the Kings, like a 6-time All-Star point guard that would have been so incredibly perfect with DeMarcus Cousins that it would have been crazy. And so, you know, like it's hard because those guys just got out of the way. They just lived the dream. They're like, this is amazing. We own a basketball team. They jumped up and down on the sidelines. And anytime you got an interview, it was like, okay, this is crazy. I can't believe these guys own a basketball team. Now Vivek, like it's different. He can't step back, and it's just one after another. And not only that, but they harken back to the era of 2002. And they just keep bringing these guys in because I think they believe that some reason that will make things better, that fans will digest it better, or they'll give them a little bit of a longer leash. And that's just not the case. Like, again, like
fans they want to win.
Yeah. I love Doug. The thought of him not being able to be in Sacramento, and people say, oh, he'll just go right back to TV. It's like, do you really think? When has that worked? When is that? I mean, like, again, Mitch Richmond won't walk in the building. Vlade Divac showed up at a game and it was stunning. Everyone was shocked, but there's a lot of fans that do not like Vlade Divac at all anymore. And he's one of the nicest men ever. He's a humanitarian who's done so much good work in the world. And he's not well liked at all in Sacramento anymore. And that's not because Vlade said yes, just like Doug would say yes. But you can't fault someone for saying, yeah, fine, if you're going to pay me that much money. I'm like, okay, that's life-altering money, you know, even if they are former players.
Well,
anyway.
That's good stuff. Jesse, we're going to get Ham out, but we may keep going. We'll get a feel for it. Just be on alert. Yeah. Okay. If that's what you want to do, that's what we'll do. I just want to make sure we get Ham out on time. So James, we might let you go at the time needed, but we'll stay on the air. So we'll actually let you go, but we'll keep talking.
Okay, cool.
So 43 still works?
Yeah, that works. Yep.
That's fine.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to make sure you.
And are we still like, how much time do we have?
We're coming back. Yeah, we're coming back any second. 30 seconds.
Okay, I'll be quick. I'll say this, like, knowing Jerry and Gary, the Maloofs set them up like long-term because they knew that there wasn't a bunch of retirement set up for people like them in the industry. And they took care of them in like the 2000s, and those guys in the early 2000s, those guys have like, they're well taken care of in their next life. And that's where, I mean, like, they were good owners. They weren't bad owners the whole time.
Hang on. It might be the first time we ever run what happened during the commercial break back on the radio later. Like if y'all are listening on the Odyssey app or 1320 a.m. and you're in the car, you might want to head over to youtube.com/ESPN 1320 and catch the entire conversation with James. James, we had to stop you short there. I don't know if you wanted to respond to what Kenny was saying there and talking about winning versus, for Vivek, winning versus Vivek winning the way he wants to. Like, he seems to have a vision of what winning is with this franchise versus what winning is, period. And he wants to do it his way, which to this point, approaching 9 years in, maybe, it's been an epic failure.
Right. And to that point, also to that, James, he says he wants to win. I believe he wants to win. But how bad do you want to win? Is it more important to do the things that you want to do and make sure that you have that say so, that power, and if something does strike gold, that you get all the credit for it? Or do you really just want to win at all costs? And if somebody else gets the credit, fine, whatever. I don't know if he wants it that bad.
Yeah, I think it's such a difficult question because, again, I know he doesn't want to lose. I also don't think that he looks at the future of the franchise and says, okay, well, this is where I'm going to go here. This is where I'm going to go. Like, it's not plotted out. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm crazy. I know that there certainly have been times when, there are plotted things that are being plotted that you're coming into a season knowing that something's going to happen. Like, reminds me, Dave Yeager, like, he knew he was going to be gone at 20 games in his third season. I mean, he told me that I have 20 games and then I will be let go. And then he won and they couldn't let him go. And then Brandon Williams went to the press and said, well, there's a good chance he's getting fired still anyways. So like, that was the idea. So, but I don't think overall, I don't think that there's a constant, vision of Vivek saying, okay, I'm going to medal here. I'm going to medal here. I think that in the moment when things spin out, then it becomes like a pretty strange conversation, because even like the Doug thing, I'll tell you this, like, I've heard Doug as a potential head coach for this team like 2 years ago. And so it's not like this is the first time that that's come up behind the scenes. And again, I think there's a possibility Doug could be an excellent head coach. Excellent. I don't know that for sure, but what I know is he can't be an excellent head coach taking over this team right now, today, Sunday, when it happened. He could not be that coach. He could not be an excellent head coach moving forward. He would not survive what's in front of him, because we all see what's in front of him. Right. We all understand the landmines that's here. This team has lost 8 out of 9. They lost 9 in a row twice last year. Like, this team is not ready to snap out of whatever they're doing. Maybe they do it tonight and you're like, oh, okay, that's great. But when something goes wrong 2 months from now or a month from now, will they be able to snap out of it? And the chances of that happening are very slim, because they've shown, this is who they are. Like, when they show you who they are. And again, I think that might be the thing with Vivek. He's shown us who he is. Like, this isn't new. None of it's new. He did this in the first less than a year on the job. Well, Michael Malone was maybe 18 months. Michael Malone's was fired in just like a bizarre way. And the lead up to that was even worse. The lead up was worse. They went to Alvin Gentry and tried to get him to be Michael Malone's lead assistant. They took him aside. They had him for an interview without Michael Malone there and said, hey, we want you to be Michael Malone's lead assistant, but we're going to terminate him like 20 games into the season, and you're going to be the new head coach. And he said, wait, what? Like, that's not the way this works. We're a coaching fraternity. They're like, what do you mean? Like, we're going to give you the job. Like, we'll have accelerators in your contract that make you the head coach. And he's like, yeah, like, that's not okay. And then he turned around and he called Michael Malone. Alvin Gentry did, and said, "Hey, look, this is the plan." And Michael Malone had to go and blow things up behind the scenes. After that, they tried to stick Kurt Rambis in as his lead assistant. They brought him in, and Michael Malone heard about it and showed up. Like, these things have happened before. All of these situations, we are not in something that's new at all. So just at what point do you learn from the mistakes? And if you can't admit their mistakes, then that's even a bigger problem. Like, so again, like, I think Vivek is a very nice man, and I think he does mean well. And, clearly he saved the team. He built the arena. He did all kinds of downtown. The Doco is amazing what they've done there. But you have to take a step back and assess what your role has been and what's happened. And if you can't rectify that, like if you can't say that you had a positive influence on what's happened, then you have to take a hard look at yourself. And I just don't know that that's ever going to happen. Like,
was Nancy Lieberman one of those people that you were just talking about?
I never even thought about Nancy.
Because wasn't she? I don't know if mole is the right term, but didn't Vivek have the idea of the first women's head coach, and that's kind of why she was lurking around these? That's an unfair word. I'm sorry, but it isn't that kind of why she was on these staffs, and one day she was just gone. She just disappeared.
She certainly was. I think she was the second woman assistant head coach assistant in the NBA behind Becky Hammonds, but only by like a month or something. And I certainly think that had something to do with it, that, they wanted to be on the forefront of that stuff. But I mean, we've had a conversation about Nancy before. Nancy is a basketball legend. She's an amazing person. She's the craziest name dropper I've ever met in my entire life. She can spit names that she's hung out with, and knows.
It's only a matter of time before she had a dinner party with Jesus. Like, it's going to happen.
That's what I've said. Yeah. So, I mean, really, it's amazing just how she's been part of not just the basketball landscape, but the sports landscape in America for so long, that she does know everyone. That was just, you don't know who someone is really until you get them behind the scenes. And I don't think that that was George Karl's staff, I believe.
That's it. That's right.
And George had a very, very tight staff. Chad Iskey, like all of his staff, Vance Wahlberg. Now you're testing my memory, which doesn't usually fail
That's
me.
okay.
But yeah, I mean, he had a very tight staff they were George Karl guys.
Right.
So, and I think that's always kind of the interesting thing. Like, every coach has a different, like Dave Yeager's staff was his guys. All of those guys, they coached together in the minor leagues. They coached against each other. They had traded players for steak dinners. Like, they had, like, in the minor leagues, they all knew each other so incredibly well, and they were a cohesive unit. But Dave was the voice, and so there can be an issue with that. When Luke Walton came in, he hired a really mixed staff that didn't gel together at all, and that was a problem, and he kept changing his staff. George Karl's staff was very strictly his staff. I think Bobby Jackson and Nancy Lieberman were both on that staff, which were not his handpicked people, and so I think that became a huge issue.
The biggest takeaway I get from all of this, James, going through this, hearing you speak about some of the things that's gone on in the past, hearing others speak about what's going on currently, there's no commitment to winning with this organization. Winning is not the most important thing in that building. And that goes from the ownership to the people right below ownership, to the front office, to the locker room. Winning is not the most important thing in that building. And when winning becomes the most important thing, like, because right now, power might be the most important thing. Numbers, contracts, egos. There are a bunch of things that either are 1, 2, 3, 4, or at the very least 1, 2 ahead of winning everywhere across the board. And this franchise will not change its fortunes until every single person, from the ownership to the guy that decides to ride the bike the whole time instead of sitting with his teammates on the bench, until everybody is committed to winning, and that's the most important thing and the only thing that matters. Until that happens, we'll be here again probably 2 years from now.
Yeah, I'll respond with, I think sometimes people don't know how to win. Like, you can say that, that winning is the most important thing, but like, some people, they aren't natural winners. Some
Mhm.
people don't know how to win. They don't know what it takes to win. But like, the guy riding the bike, I think, is a perfect example of this. Everyone in the building saw that. It's on everyone that even Vivek was in that gym. Somebody walk over and tell them what appearance is. Like, that didn't look good for him specifically, but let's just call it as it is. Everyone on that team let him sit over there and ride his bike.
Mhm. Mhm.
That is where the winning mentality isn't there. And sometimes I think maybe this team doesn't just quite get what a winning mentality is. And some of them were winners before. You try to bring in winners to say this is how we win, but it's a lot easier for Tristan Thompson to talk about a winning culture and being a winner when he's got LeBron James playing next to him.
Mhm.
That guy's a winner. He showed you how to be a winner, but when he left, it's not like the Cavs were horrible again. I mean, that was your winning personality. So again, like, I would like to say that, this is all like contrived and everyone is out to get each other and this is nothing but backstabbing and craziness. Some of that's true, but at the same time, I also just think that they don't understand that what they're doing isn't conducive to winning. Like, that might be the bigger issue, that someone can't tell them, hey, look, that is not helping. What is happening right, that is not helping us move forward, and it's actually setting us backwards. And so that's what I hope is learned out of some of this, but I guarantee you it's I don't see it right now. Like, where's the light bulb going to go on? Because we already know who might be the next head coach. And we also know that management just said no to that head coach. And so what, do you just get new managers that already have to take on the idea of what's happening? And so again, like, that's an issue. That's an issue.
James, you have to go. I can't believe I have to ask this question before you leave. Is there a real possibility they fire Alvin Gentry before the year's over?
Hey, anything is possible. Like, we just talked about it for 45 minutes. Someone who doesn't learn from their mistakes are doomed to repeat them, and you don't have to make all the mistakes yourself. Something I tell my boys all the time. You can watch other people make mistakes and go, ooh, I'm not going to do that. Well, that doesn't happen here. You just keep making your own mistakes. And not only that, but you keep making the same mistakes until you figure out how to not make the same mistake again and again. Then you're just going to keep doing it. You're just going to keep being in the same position. So I hope it works out. I love covering this team. I get as frustrated as everyone else does, but I also, like, when you have some of the knowledge that's hiding in my head about what's happened and you see it happening again, it's just really hard, like, again, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. Right. Like,
Yeah.
And that's where we're at.
Get on the road, James. We'll see you at the Golden One Center tonight.
Take care,
my
Thanks,
friend.